Jack maybe, or then.
All right, so we got Raj, we got Randall, and
Good.
you are watching NSTV. Let's go. All right. So today we have a lot of interesting things. First of all, let's get the smoothie. Let's get the smoothie on, and then we'll
Thank
keep
you to
going.
our sponsor,
Yes.
Satoshi Nakamoto.
Satoshi.
Thank you, CIA.
Yes. We got
CIA.
a
That's
brand.
who Satoshi is, right, guys?
Yeah.
Right? We
NSA.
agree?
CIA,
no,
NSA, yeah.
No argument. No argument.
There was a new
US
documentary,
government?
right?
Hmm?
There was a new documentary on Satoshi, right? They're, again,
Well,
trying to figure
Stefan
out-
does an excellent talk about unraveling who Satoshi might be.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's like a 3.5 hour it's like a crime thriller.
Did you go?
Yeah, it was amazing.
3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
Thank you, Satoshi.
Thank you, Satoshi.
Great woman. See, Satoshi's a woman. You all assume he's a man.
All right, a lot of new things are happening right now. We got a brand refresh. What do you guys think about the new color?
Fresh.
Fresh.
I think Base is going to sue you for stealing their brand identity, man. Look at this.
It's okay. We're in the base thing.
We're
so.
in the base.
Yeah,
We're in the base. So this is perfect. And then we also got the Raj versus Randall live on NSTV today. So it's all about who got better takes.
The 2 R's.
The 2 R's. We're gonna keep going, and the audience decides. And maybe we'll do another thing where whoever has I don't know if we're gonna have live chat over here, but if we have good comments, you guys decide that who gets whatever 20 MYR. Cool. And let's go. All right. So what do we have first, Raj? You send us some links. You send us some links.
Yeah, I mean, we could just go whatever's the first. I think this is the one I.
This is you.
This is one of the
Yeah.
ones, right? This is probably not the best post, but I think the trend that I see is obviously peptides are big, but these drugs have been in the pipeline for years. GLP-1, etc., and they have a host of like really cool benefits. I mean, addiction goes down, anxiety goes down, hunger. You're not hungry all the time, right? So it suppresses appetite, and then it also helps regulate your glucose levels.
Maybe
So-
you can tell people what this is about, though.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah. I don't.
So it's basically GLP-1 and some new drugs that these Eli Lilly basically is developing, and they saw some new interesting in rats at least data showing basically it's better than the current one, which is Retta. Retta is one of the current Retatratrude or whatever is the current version from Eli Lilly. But I think TLDR for most people, like the benefit that's coming in the next couple of years, or even like in the next 2 years, is you're gonna have like one, GLP-1 that's gonna have all these other benefits because it's already showing that, and this one shows it in rats that it's like you're gonna preserve muscle mass, you're gonna preserve, you'll lose your weight, you'll lose more visceral fat. So today it's like you lose a little bit of muscle mass to get the fat loss, and then you have to continue on it, right? So there's some issues there, but I think this is positive, I'd say, like long story short, of what's in the pipeline before getting into all the biotech.
Right.
And I mean, that's just a different probably conversation, but
Right. Have you looked into Ozempic?
If you're being paid by Eli Lilly, you should disclose this because this just sounds like you're freaking doing an advertisement for them.
Well, it's
man.
okay.
What's interesting here? I don't know what's that interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, like,
You're just saying it's like got some other benefits.
no, I mean, you can buy Chinese version of it. It's the same thing. So-
This is the best tweet you could find. Come
What?
on, man. This is not worth talking about.
Well,
What's
GLP-1s?
interesting? What's interesting about it?
What? So okay. What is the title? You want to read that? Maybe that'll help. So it says a long-acting quintuple agonist for GLP-1, GIP, glucagon, amylin receptors, so greater weight loss than retatrutide or Retta in obese rats. So what does that mean? It basically means that it's getting better. So these drugs are getting better.
In rats.
In rats, yeah. So that's where it starts, anyways, right? So.
Interesting. I like that you're challenging him.
I think this is not this is such a lame story.
I mean, I like to nerd out on this stuff. So
I know, but it's in rats. It's like early stage. It's like
Yeah,
what
but that's
has
where it
some
starts.
marginal new benefits. Come on.
I mean,
Okay.
that's what peptides are. Like, so if you want to bring it back to what's probably more interesting for this crowd, is like everyone talking about peptides, right? The reality is that they're already made in your body, right? But to make them to make them insured by pharma companies as well as the Medicare system, at least in the U.S., you had to go through all these studies, longitudinal studies, and all that type of stuff, right? Now there's a lot of excitement, right? And there's a market. So this GLP thing, I mean, yeah, it's not new. It's been here for years, but the market's opened up. So now a lot more investment will go in, a lot more money will go in, and then it's gonna get consumerized, right? So companies like Hims will start to just give it to you for X amount of dollars. Amazon as well, right? $50 a month. And so this is kind of like an adjunct to the typical like symptom-based healthcare, right? Now you're preventing things, right, by taking it. You have the biohackers and tech bros basically taking this stuff. But right now we're in this phase of a lot more science being funded, per se. And then on the other side of the world, China is subsidizing the manufacturing, right? Basically, you can get any Chinese peptide, right? That's where the meme comes from, for really cheap. And in the U.S., a lot of companies are now starting to build out manufacturing capacity as well for the APIs. So, long story short, I think for me it was interesting. Maybe not for everyone, but
here's the more interesting question: is should we be paying and investing in drugs that are perhaps kind of behaviorally related, right? Like, should we, you call this kind of a preventative like treatment or drug or something like that, right? But like, some people are obese because they're making bad choices about what they're eating, exercise, nutrition. That's something that, network school kind of espouses. So like, should we really be investing heavily, or should it be covered by Medicare and Medicaid for things where perhaps like should invest instead in like education or giving people like, perhaps gym memberships is a more effective way to, help people or things like that. Because I used to be in health tech as well. One of the things that we did is something called hotspotting. We analyzed the most expensive Medicaid users, and we saw that these people that were asthmatics, they kept having avoidable admissions in the summertime.
Right.
Why was that? Why do you think it was?
In the summertime, because you're out and about.
No. So the problem was, okay, what are Medicaid patients?
They're older people usually.
No.
So
that's Medicare.
Right.
Medicaid is low income. I thought you were American healthcare. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay, so Medicaid.
But you explain it.
Well, you said you're the healthcare guy.
I'm not the healthcare. I just thought it was a cool tweet.
Okay. Anyways,
you don't have to ask these rhetorical questions.
So Medicaid are for low income people, right? So low income people cannot afford air conditioners. So they were triggering all these asthma attacks because their apartments were too damn hot in New York City. New York City in July and August gets to get to 90, 100. So what they did is, instead of paying for these avoidable admissions, the ambulance, the admission cost itself, thousands of dollars, the Medicaid program decided to instead pay for, $500 air conditioners and gave them $100 top up every month for the additional costs on their energy bills. And that reduced the avoidable admissions by over half. So my kind of question is, instead of potentially paying for expensive medications like this, what if we invested more in perhaps more downstream type, preventative treatments or interventions that are maybe more behavioral related, right? Because this is kind of once someone's already obese and stuff like that, what if we invested more kind of downstream or even pre-preventive?
Question, just to clarify, so you said what was the government investing in and what was the pattern that we saw? We saw that during summer, if you invest in air conditioning, what happened?
So you, in the Medicaid covered population, they saw that there were all these asthmatics that were being admitted, had emergency admissions. Asthmatics shouldn't end up in the ER. These are largely avoidable admissions. And so if you're able to figure out what's the root cause of that, it was triggered because they were living in their hot apartments. It was triggering their asthma. They call 911, they take an ambulance, they get admitted to the hospital, they become inpatients, right? So instead of, which costs thousands and thousands of dollars, the ambulance alone costs $2,000. If they're inpatient and spend a night there, that's probably another $5,000. So instead of spending the $7,000, why don't we spend $500 plus another 100 per month to just buy them the damn air conditioner, and it reduced their avoidable admissions by more than half.
Makes sense. Also the root cause. So government actually did that. They were like, okay, we found the root cause. The root cause is just the air conditioning over here.
Yeah. We
solve for that, and that reduces the amount of 911 calls that we get.
Yeah, and so I guess part of my question is things like these, pharmaceuticals and things like that, or biologics, they're kind of like post problem, right? Like, you're trying to treat obesity or whatever, things like that. But what if we kind of also invested, because it's highly underinvested, things like nutrition or like exercise or things like that. It's very possible that some of these people just can't afford gym memberships, or perhaps they're working 2 jobs and that's why they can't afford these things. Like, my question is, like, we invest a lot on the kind of treatment side or like the pharmaceutical side, but what if we also invested more heavily in the kind of pre-preventive side?
Yeah, I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
But I mean, to go back to your earlier point, I think there's a cap on these types of interventions, right? Like, I think most people have a behavioral lifestyle problem, right? Which gets exacerbated by the genetics they come with, right? So for example, we were hunter-gatherers for a long time. A lot of us are not adapted for an office job. So if you don't burn your calories, like during the day, and if you're just sitting there for most of it, you start to gain more fat, visceral fat, et cetera, right? And so that lifestyle shift has happened so fast, evolutionary speaking, I would say. And I'm not a biologist, but I'm just like, these are the hypotheses that you can look at, or the patterns, if you want to pattern match, right? So with American healthcare, I think America has kind of indexed over, into the system of treating things, not the root cause, but treating them post, when they when things happen, right? Oh, I have a heart attack, so I'm gonna give you like blood thinners, etc., right? Yeah. So same thing here. I'm obese, so I'm gonna get these injections, right? Or with diabetes, the same thing. So long story short, the Western system has focused on not prevention per se, because the incentives have been wrapped around more so towards just treating things when they happen acute, Yeah. So that's a business model problem, and I don't even know where to start with that.
No, it's true. That's actually quite true. Yeah. Yeah, and the way that we have addressed it in some of these systems is like capitated based payments. So you pay for outcomes rather than pay for the inputs, because in most healthcare systems, they're called fee-for-service model-based systems, right? It's like volumes times price. So actually, doctors and health systems make more money the sicker you are, because the healthier you are, the less they see you. But in a capitated-based model, where they get like a per member per month like kind of fee. So if you're part of a kind of a clinical unit, and you kind of say like, for your 1,000 patients, you'll get $1,000 or $5,000 per head. Whether how much healthcare they utilize in that period is up to you guys. So for them, it's actually more profitable the healthier they can make you with lower cost treatments or even prevention. So that's like one model of how to do it. But back to your earlier point, like I think again, this is why I don't think this is like necessarily like great news, is because you said it's a lifestyle problem, right? And so therefore, shouldn't we address the lifestyle issue rather than putting them on this? And then they'll have to be on this for life, right, to be able to maintain this. So like,
well, let's look at the reality, right? Like, how many people in the West right now, right, that have been used to this lifestyle, right, and the sedentary lifestyle? How many of them have actually shifted with all the incentives that have been given over the years, right?
How many incentives have been given to them?
I mean, you think about the cultural change, right? Everyone has access to social media, right? So if you're arguing that, everyone has agency, well, with the amount of marketing, Nike does, everyone does, right, to get people out, and then sports is a big part of American culture as well as Western culture. Why aren't people out and about and taking care of their health, right? There's probably a bunch of reasons why. It's a cultural thing as well as like urban planning thing as well, right? In New York City, you can walk everywhere, right? Versus like in Texas, very different. You drive everywhere, right? So in America, there's like a range and variance of like the way the urban planning has happened too, right? As well as like the food. In terms of the food, it's like if you go to Walmart or Costco in America, you can get bulk of like literally meat and carbs, everything in bulk. And so it's pretty cheap and abundant to buy food. And then when you're stressed out, it's also easy with the dopamine hits you get through the lifestyle of social media and everything, right? So the whole system, basically lifestyle in the West is a little bit not conducive towards being healthy, basically, I would say.
Makes sense.
Overall. Like versus, let's say 40 years ago, like my parents from India in the village, like they're farmers. They literally 12 hours a day labor, right? Like on the farm, getting sun. So like they didn't really have to hyper optimize like the biohackers today do, right? Even myself, I have to hyper optimize. Like people at NS are hyper optimizing. But if you're living a lifestyle where you're just walking everywhere, you're hunter gatherers, right? And your diet is attuned to your genetics as well as the climate is also attuned to the genetics. that kind of helps with the basic orient your whole lifestyle, right?
So I believe you were talking more about how do we change the incentives of the system.
It's partly changing the incentives, but also like I think there's a mentality to like revert to like the pharmaceutical answer because it's quicker and it seems like the easiest pathway, right? It's easier to take a treatment or an injection or pill or things like that rather than make the difficult thing, which is the lifestyle change, right? I don't buy everything he's saying about like if Nike's so good at marketing, why aren't people working out more? Like there's a lot of like socioeconomic reasons why that's not true. But I think there's too much kind of reliance on like the quick route through pharmaceuticals and more like what if we invested more instead of like putting it to pharmacare and putting it more into some of these like more novel ways of thinking about like preventive behavioral changes, incentives, and things like that, subsidizing, I don't know, like gym memberships, making more accessible like healthy foods and things like that.
Life insurance companies subsidize your
life insurance is for private for people that are
so you're talking
employed
about
by.
You're talking about lower income.
That's
the socioeconomic band.
Well, that you brought up Medicare and Medicaid. So
I didn't bring up Medicare.
You did.
No, I didn't.
You did. We can go back to the video.
I don't remember.
No.
We can go back. Yes.
I mean, we can go
back.
back.
The audience can go back. Yes.
I didn't bring up Medicare. I basically just said like these drugs are now getting insured, right?
Yeah.
And corporate plans are insuring them too. Medicare, of course, but that's where you went. Just to be clear. But I disagree in the sense that like you can incentivize people. That's one way of behavioral change.
Yeah.
The other way is you build a new system. I think the Western healthcare system is too far gone. That you have to start here, right? Which is why they're doing this. And a lot of people now are just saying like, I may not even want to pay for insurance anymore, like health insurance, right? Because it doesn't really, my deductible is high, it doesn't insure anything. If I go to the hospital, they're gonna, overcharge me anyways, right? So this cat and mouse game is continuing being played. So people are looking for a new system. So you have all these like new, VC-backed companies and this new wave of the biohacking and all this stuff, right? That's an early adopter. For most people, they need something simple, right? Which is why the whole pharma industry exists. You need pills. You need like, a simple, insulin, injection every month or every day, right? For many of the diabetics. So this, I think, is a net positive, but to what you're talking about, that's like a total paradigm shift, right? You gotta rip out that system, and then you gotta have a cultural change, right? About like how you actually do things. So like, for example, in India and China, you have traditional medicine, right? So in China, you have TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. There's a host of different, literature per se, right? Same in India and in Southeast Asia. There's like these different, there's a traditional medicine, right? In India, it's like Ayurvedic.
Yeah.
So
it's very interesting when I'm hearing both of you.
Right?
It's very interesting when I'm hearing both of you. I don't think you guys disagree. It's just that you are talking about the ideal world of what should happen, and he's talking more about how the America has a habit of solving solving the symptoms and never solving the root cause. So that's where my high-level understanding is right on the solution.
Yeah, I agree. But I guess my point is like the reason why I kind of triggered that from like why this is not particularly interesting, or perhaps the more interesting debate is whether or not we should be celebrating these types of things and reverting to these types of solutions rather than thinking outside the box. Like I'd hope people at network school are kind of more paradigm shift people rather than kind of status quo type people.
Yeah. Because one thing I can say for network school is that back in a big city, you all are by default isolated. You are in your homes, you are constantly scrolling a screen. Mm-hmm. Over here, you get out of your room and you are with your people. If you want to grab your food, you are surrounded by people. So by design, loneliness, the concept of loneliness and the concept of isolation has been removed from the system. Yeah. So the system kind of operates on the ideal vision that you have, which is like incentivize, build the system from ground up such that you don't even need anything like reactionary solutions. And
also like a bit to the kind of proof of this model is that like you can make choices. These are high agency people, and we have seen people who have literally transformed in their time here by making better behavioral choices, by giving the conditions of like being served healthy food and things like that. So then the bigger question, I suppose, is like, how do we turn the average person into a high agency person, and how do we create the conditions for them to kind of experience the same things that we do, right? it's a big challenge, and yes, it does require some innovation in the model, but it's not impossible. Like it is being done, and like I said, we did some of this stuff in New York State, so yeah, it is possible.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with it. I mean, I grew up low income as well. Actually, my parents came out of a business in Texas, and I've been around like the low income environment, and people are working 2-3 jobs is the reality, right? My parents work 2-3 jobs, and they don't have the time and cognitive bandwidth to even think about food. It's just we eat, we go back to work, and then it's a cycle. Here, it's like everything's automated at the network school, right? So what you kind of need, in a sense, is you need that level of automation, per se, but for their lifestyle, right? So here's the thing you eat, right? Even if it tastes bad, right? And this is the pill you take. This is the supplements. In a sense, that's kind of what we're doing here too, right? People are on protein bars, on whatever longevity mixes, and all that type of stuff, right? It's just kind of the same thing, except it's marketed
So they do have that in the U.S. It's called SNAP, right?
Yeah, you have SNAP. Yeah.
So SNAP is the
What is SNAP?
So it's the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, and essentially it's like a subsidy to give people like funding for food.
Yeah.
Now, one change that Trump did recently is to say like what that could be used to pay for, like what kind of food, it was more prescriptive in terms of like you couldn't buy like junk food and stuff like that. There was a bit of like uproar over that, but like that's kind of the point, is like you can create the programs that subsidize their ability to kind of pay for nutritional food.
Yeah.
The programs do exist, they just need to be reformed, because before it was more open-ended. So yeah, there are those kind of interventions. But my question to you is like, because again, you brought up that this is like a private pay thing. Like, were your parents privately insured?
When we were younger, when they just came to America, I think they were on work insurance. So wherever they worked gave them that insurance at that time. It's like in the 90s. And then when we had our small business, we would have to self-insure. And I think that was it was around the time when Obamacare was launched. So 2007, 8, something like that, when it launched. And so we got onto Obamacare as well during that time.
Right, which means you would have been Medicaid covered. Yeah. So again, like when you're talking about this being a solution for like, only private pay people, it's going to leave out like a significant.
So
portion.
I see what you're saying, and I think the reality though is this is not being administered to like tech bros per se. Tech bros are just buying it off the shelf because they see the counter benefits of like, oh, if I take one peptide, it's going to have all these other benefits to it basically, and I can get to like whatever body fat percentage, et cetera, et cetera. So they're more like the optimizer types who are just so high agency they'll like take the risk of buying a Chinese peptide, right? Yeah. And then inject themselves. For most people that are obese, you first need, of course you can do behavior change, but it has to be holistic, is what I've seen from a long time ago when I was doing health work. You have to give them all the modalities. You have to give them the wearable, right? If to track, and then you have to give them the pill, right? Whatever that pill is, or insulin for a lot of diabetics, right? And then also along with that, if you want to lower it, as the GLP-1s do, right? You have to give them that too, and the injection and all that, the pens. So I think once you do that, at least step one is they lose enough fat for them to then go try to get onto the healthy lifestyle and all that. Because it's a gradual step up. You can't just like go with 0 to 100. When you're trying to when you have a life to live, right? Per se.
And so now we don't want to over-index on this one tweet because
but I think there's just a very simple one solution to this, is that and it's a medical solution, is that we clone Tim and we give every community a Tim. Yes. And he has to yell at everyone to get into better shape, because it seems to work for the 7 a.m. burners. So yes, that's the solution. Clone Tim.
Tim Johnson.
Yes.
Right.
Tim Johnson.
Perfect.
A Tim Johnson for every household.
That's it. Let's go.
It's going to be sponsored by Tesla. Tesla Optimus.
Randall, which one was your first tweet?
We can either do USVC or...
Yes, USVC.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
I got USVC.
Or we can do the French guy who gamed the prediction market stuff.
This is USVC.
Oh, I don't have it. Okay, did you send it?
Yeah, I did, but it's fine.
Okay,
USVC.
I'll save it. But yeah, let's go USVC. What are your thoughts? Amazing stuff. I think we can actually watch the video first. It's just 1 minute.
And we gotta be careful because he's friends with Balaji, so we gotta be careful what we say.
So why can't you invest in it right now? Most investors are forbidden by law in investing in early stage innovation. So all they're left with are IPOs at best. And IPOs are for the last investor in line.
Mixed berries.
By the time you get to a public market, the adventure is gone. Retail investors have been protected from the risk, but they've also been protected from the rewards. USVC is a bundle of US venture capital. It's exactly what it sounds like. It enables you to invest in technology when it's a dream. You want to solve climate change, it's probably going to be a technological solution. You want to solve clean energy, it's probably going to be a technological solution. You want to make more of the earth inhabitable. You want smarter computers, you want better cars, you want cheaper healthcare, it's probably going to be a technological solution.
Everything is a tech solution.
So put your money where your desires are and let's get to work.
USVC.com. By the way, we also have a guest, AJ. You want to say hi on the
AJ.
stream? All right. What about regulating supermarkets the same way some countries in Europe regulated alcohol? This is 10K Rotator. He is part of NS. Let's
So,
go.
What is he saying?
What do we think?
Regulating supermarkets the same way some. Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? Like, I mean, we regulate cigarettes and drugs.
Yeah.
And alcohol, like you said, alcohol, right?
Yeah.
So why not 50 grams of sugar Starbucks drinks, right? Like, or 100 grams of, or like even 400 milligrams of caffeine, right? Some stuff like that. I
Right.
think we should definitely do that. It's a net positive on people. So.
Yeah, and I think they've attempted this in the States. Even New York Mayor Bloomberg tried to regulate what the size of soft drinks could be at
Yeah.
at fast food places.
Interesting.
But it essentially, I think it's sunsetted.
Yeah.
But part of the problem is because I lived in the Netherlands and the produce there is completely different, and it's the same thing that people talk about how they go to Italy and they eat pasta
Yeah.
and pizza
Yeah.
for weeks and they still end up losing weight, and it's
Right.
not just because they walk around a lot. It's just because the quality of the ingredients is different, and Europe.
right.
The one good Europe regulations is in
It's
food.
food, yeah.
Protect,
100%.
do not look at. But for food, absolutely.
I don't think it's even protection. It's just the fact that they want to. They have an art. They really care about their food, right?
Yeah.
It's the care they put into the quality and the taste.
But regulation creates your floor,
Right.
right? So you
Yeah.
can't,
Right.
because you can't go after profit to do that,
Yeah.
right? But in Europe, they really do protect with preservatives and the inclusion of chemicals and stuff like that. And unfortunately, this is where you see Robert Kennedy Jr. trying to
Yeah.
do more with
Maha.
with Maha to get rid of these dyes, get rid of these chemicals and stuff like
Right.
that. But these lobbies are really powerful in the United States. So I think that's one of
Yeah.
the challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, on that front, as much as the EU gets a bunch of flack for a lot of things, over regulation of stuff, on the food side, it is really good. I mean, they've always so some of the laws, if you track them, let's say something comes out about titanium dioxide recently, right? Which is this desk is white because they put TiO2 in there, which
Yeah.
is this small amount of it.
Titanium.
But that stuff is not good because when it leaches out, you touch it, it gets into your skin, and then eventually it starts to create oxidation, a bunch of stuff, bad stuff, basically, right? Same thing has been put into plastic containers to make them white. Milk jugs, in the U.S., they're a little bit more milky white because they put TiO2 in there. So EU was nah, we don't want that because we saw new research coming out saying this has, it's toxic effects over time, right? It can cause cancer because of the oxidative species that come out, right, over time. So, but the US did not do that as fast, right? They were oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. Business as usual, right? Because as Randall said, the lobbies, the chemical companies in the US as well as everyone else that has the supply chain already set, because it's so expensive to switch a supply chain out, right? And then do the R&D and all that stuff. Unless you have a big social media wave saying, I don't want, aspartame in my Coke anymore, right? And some influencers and creators nowadays, right? Before it has to be a protest, ground movement, right? Organic movement. Now it's just overnight. So I think these things are happening from more of the societal level per se versus the government level, at least in the US, I see.
Totally. People are
are
getting
coming up,
knowledgeable.
yeah.
People have
Correct.
access to AI. They are seeing
Exactly.
that what's wrong, what are the wrong policies. They are trying to learn. People are surrounded by really good, let's say, influencers these days.
I mean, Brian Johnson, all these
Brian
knowledge,
Johnson.
yeah.
Exactly.
So
Hopefully they're
these
good.
are net positives.
Yeah,
for
net
sure.
positives.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's get back to USVC. You first shared me, so first you go. What do you wanna? What did you find interesting over here?
Well, I guess open it up to you guys to ask the question. Like, so obviously the I guess the thesis of USVC is to kind of democratize access to what are traditionally accessible only to like venture capital, and venture capital is generally only accessed at the kind of LP level by accredited investors who are typically wealthier people. That's what the kind of means test is for accredited investors. I believe in the U.S. it's like 300K annual income and like 2 to 3 million in net assets.
Yeah.
So like this is obviously again like kind of, I think part of the belief is that a lot of the value of these kind of high growth startups is extracted pre-IPO. And by the time the public markets, the average person can access it, like a lot of that upside potential has been kind of extracted by venture capital and private equity. And so this is a vehicle that they're trying to do to enable that. So I guess part of the question is like, is this something that the public should have access to? Because part of the reason of why they allow accredited investors to participate in these types of deals is because they can afford the losses in a way. That's kind of the implicit kind of thing about it. The second is generally there's, for example, in Canada, they do kind of like a knowledge type test on these things to make sure that they are aware of the risks that they're taking on. But we've seen where, like, let's say certain kind of financial products or instruments become dangerous for retail. Like we saw when Robinhood enabled options trading for the average retail investor. A young guy ended up killing himself because he was over levered. So I guess the question is, is this a net positive? And B, like, is this something you guys would be interested in? Or you guys may be accredited investors, but I don't know.
I mean, this is what I think about. Whenever a product like this comes out, it's always exit liquidity. I'm a little bit bearish on these types of products because KKR came out with private credit fund for retail. It's basically exit liquidity at the end of the day. I know, like, these guys are, well intended, right? And it also depends on what stage, right? Are they talking about Series D, basket of Series D or Series C? I haven't really looked into exactly their details. But I think that matters a lot, what valuation, right?
Yeah.
And so
they do have a breakdown where like 20% just goes to XAI, which was very
it's a big
interesting.
one, yeah.
So it's basically a secondary basket, right? Like most of the
Of course,
institutionals, they're raising a bunch of money right now. Secondaries are hot in the last 2 years, right? If you look at there's a company called Hive, maybe we should get some sponsorship from them. HIIV is a Canadian company.
My
actually.
buddy works at Hive.
Yeah. So I did a deep tech event. So I mean, professionally, I'm also a deep tech VC part time, and we looked at analyzed all the data with using their proprietary data set, and secondaries were obviously the volume was quite high starting in 2023 into now today, especially up to this IPO, SpaceX and Anthropic, OpenAI, and a bunch of other ones, Databricks, everyone, and so like the long story short, I see that this is. As the volume goes up, you need more and more exit liquidity to keep the valuations going up, right? And so this coming out today, why didn't it come out 2 years ago, right? That's kind of one of those things where the timing of these types of products always aligns with the market, even if they're well intended. And most retail buyers, they don't have enough like disclosures per se to understand it. There's information asymmetry here, right? So as a retail investor, you're only going to be able to go, on whatever's on the internet, but for public companies, at least they have earning calls, you can track a lot of other things. With startups, it's a little bit more opaque, right? So this is more like a high risk bet, I would say. Basically it's like the SPACs, right? I would call them.
Okay.
It's that type of bet, I would say, for most retail investors.
Okay.
So I'm not per se hyped up about this. Like, I think it's more exit liquidity, just like, everyone, KKRs of the world trying to do private credit fund from retail. I'm like, private credit is already over-levered, right? In many aspects. So, and then we're going through this huge transformational shift where like all the underlying assumptions of most of the credit products like are basically kind of moot in a sense right now, right? I mean, if self-driving comes out, what is real estate worth, right? urban planning. You know, it was for a different time. With AI, I mean, what are these SaaS stocks worth? And what are the bonds that these SaaS stocks have, right? And all the debt that they have, right?
This is very interesting.
So
we can dive deeper into
yeah, I mean, this
self-driving
is so
and
many
real
threads
estate,
here, but
anyways,
long
yeah.
story short, I'm not a big fan of these things.
Okay.
I think most retailers just index into QQQ or SPY. I think they're all well intended, but they're rich enough. These people are rich enough to fund this stuff themselves. And right now, the game theory in the capital markets is all about getting liquidity, which is why the secondary market even has blown up in the last couple of years. So
here's the best argument I've heard for USVC or in general stuff like this, which is like we are allowing the youth today to we are marketing so many gambling apps, so many what do we say, e-gambling, sports gambling stuff.
Yeah.
If we are allowing them to throw their money and waste their money at casinos and stake and all this bet sports and all that stuff, why not startups where they can actually make an upside? So that is the core argument that I hear, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, just to connect before I shift on to Randall, but there was this same phenomena in 2021 with was it public.com and I forget the other company, Fun something, I forget. Basically, they were both, I think, venture backed, and the idea was for small startups, like, we all three can be like, oh, let's go raise money on this website. It's like basically GoFundMe or crowd funding for startups. And people tried that out, right? But a lot of people lost money too, a lot of retail, because you can put in $100, $200, right, just to get X amount of shares, right, for a $10 million valuation or whatever, right? But the reason it's been, in a captive state, like venture capital as an asset class, is because it's so complicated and there's such a higher amount of risk. So you had to index into 10 things to get even one to look like something, right? So that's just the basic math. So when you bring it to retail, it's a little bit more opaque, right, for most retail. At that point, it's like meme stock trading, I think, unless you just like, buy the best of the best. And I think that's kind of what these guys are trying to do, like make an index of the best. But I think it's a dangerous thing overall.
Interesting.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with largely like the premise and like your take on all this. The first is that like you're looking at it from the kind of exit liquidity side, but I look at it more as like, again, the democratization of participation in the growth of these companies. These are not like no-name companies. It's XAI, it's Anthropic, it's OpenAI, Vercel. These are products that they, maybe not Vercel, they don't know and use, but these are products that they know and they use, and they're kind of, they're probably seeing, like the valuations of these companies go up. They're floating these multi-trillion-dollar valuations. They're saying like, I'm a user of this product, I see they're getting wealthy, how can I get a cut of this? So yeah, sure, there's exit liquidity, like so what? That's what happens when you build a great company and a great product and things like that. And the timing thing, you kind of missed two things. One is that there was a regulation that enabled this. That's why it didn't happen before. The whole point of this is that it waived the accredited investor rules. That's why this was new. Yeah, so you asked before, why is this didn't happen before? It's because of regulations. Secondly,
it's also new administration, so.
But that's what I'm saying. Like you said it in the sense of like, why didn't it happen before? It's because there were no regulations.
I did give the example right before of like public.com and.
But that's a Reg D. That's different. That's crowdfund equity. That's different than this.
I get that. But basically, it's kind of the same phenomena, right? If you were to paint this as an analogy, it's like, okay, well, let's give retail access to these really risky startups, right?
Yeah,
at an early stage. I mean, there are late stage stuff too. You can raise a Series C, like Level's raised on those websites too.
Yeah.
A small amount of their round.
But the point is that like, it's allowing
it's exit liquidity.
It's allowing people to access otherwise inaccessible
so
opportunities.
I'm not disagreeing with that, right?
And so like why not let them participate in that success?
Sure.
I think if anything, as you've seen, because you said you're in VC, right? Yeah. Are you like
I'm in deep tech.
Are you an analyst? Or are you GP or LP? Or?
I'm a partner.
Okay.
So I don't make the decisions. So I mainly do technical diligence and sourcing.
Okay.
And all that, yeah. So.
Yeah, so I'm a GP and an LP in two funds. So like what you see right now, obviously, is that you're seeing 65% of the deals are happening in the mega round stage, right?
Yes.
So all the capital's flowing so mega rounds are $100 million plus rounds, right? So capital and the kind of success, and you even kind of spelled out this notion that what's going to happen to SaaS, is it all going to die and stuff like that? We need to give folks access to these types of companies that, if we look at that list of companies, these are the ones at the other end of the spectrum that are raising these mega rounds, right? And if all the value is going to accrue to that side of the spectrum, we're only going to make the rich richer if we don't have access through opportunities like this.
I disagree because it depends on the pricing as well, right?
Well, there's no
let
pricing.
me
It's
finish.
a private.
Let me
It's a
finish.
private
No,
market.
let me finish.
Like,
It's a private market, yeah, but there's still a price you have to put in, right?
Yeah.
You're paying for shares, right? At the end of the day, it's a basket, right? So there's going to be a share price for that index, or and so yes,
So-
XAI is part of that versus some other companies. But the question always it happens in market cycles, right? It usually happens when the market cycle is, there's a bunch of IPOs in the backlog and there's a lot more liquidity coming into the markets, and that's the best time for these products to launch. The issue is that retail gets caught at that point where they buy the semi-top, right? So I think these things are good, but
historically, that's not true. Like
no,
a lot of
true.
It's not true at all.
If we took
the
talk
value
about
is accrued
2021,
before it goes public.
I understand what you're saying, but let me finish my point. So 2021 is when a lot of this backlog happened, right? And we're also in a different part of the markets, right? We're not like 30 years ago when the capital markets started to go up, 1970 post, right?
Why was
right
it
now,
such a high market then? Just
right?
out of curiosity.
No, I'm not saying it's a high market.
but why was it then,
2021
Yeah.
was a high market because we printed like $6 trillion, right? And every government, and it was COVID.
It was a zero interest rate environment. That's
exactly.
why. Yeah.
It was
So
a
there was
very
capital
anomalous
flowing
environment.
in. Yeah.
Even right now, I mean, you can argue that even with the interest rates at what they are, right, 3-4% or whatever, there's just so much money in the financial economy, not in the real economy, I'd say. Like for the average American, there's not much opportunity. Your wages have not gone up, right? So there's this, the element of YOLO, but my point here is that right now, there's just so much financial capital chasing few returns. The thing is, it's looking for exit liquidity is my whole point here, right? Through these products. And the analogy I keep painting is, KKR trying to exit with the retail fund for private credit, right? When these products come out, I think there's a reason that retail shouldn't have them. I'm not saying, this is bad, this whole product is bad, because I haven't studied exactly their allocations, right? I know XAI is there, Versal. I don't know the other ones, but Anthropic, yeah. But I think they're also topping off, right? They're at peak valuations. They're at peak valuations, right? I mean, just
so
think about,
would you, if
I
you
would
bought
not buy
these
this.
companies now,
I would
would
not buy
you
it.
sell it to me at the price of the current time? You don't think they're going to go up?
I think we're at the top. I would not buy right now.
Interesting.
That's
okay.
my take, right?
Okay.
I think we're at the peak, some peak of the
This
AI
could go
bubble.
anyway. So
No, I know. I'm surprised he's saying that.
based on
yeah.
how strong your conviction is, it's all about
Yeah,
that.
no, I mean.
By the way, let's open
yeah.
the drinks. We're
Yes.
now getting into some good arguments.
Well,
We
Right.
need some drinks.
I think we
All
have
right.
to
So
consider
Oldlandias.
that.
This is an old Chinese man drink
Okay.
that has become the unofficial sponsor.
Merci.
Don't worry,
Unofficial
they're not
sponsors.
poisoned. And they're not alcoholic. either.
Nice,
Don't
nice.
worry.
Wow, the way you were holding, I thought you were gonna go.
Shotgun it.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheers. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, folks.
Yeah, let's not dump on retail, basically.
That's some.
Let's not dump on retail.
I don't think it's dumping. I think this is this is giving them access.
This is
giving
pretty good,
hope.
though. Yeah.
And remember what we talked about during our talk, right? We talked about universal basic compute. We talked about universal basic income. Another kind of concept because we were the first investors in Canada's first licensed issuer of tokenized assets. We talked a lot about democratization of access and investment and capital and things like that. We also talked about this idea of universal basic ownership, like giving people the opportunity to have a slice of the companies within their community. It kind of creates, reinforces like these local economies. This is like, if we think about these AI companies, for example, that are making, their valuations going up and up and up, and they're generating, more and more revenue. They're not profitable yet because of the subsidies and all that, but this is a way for retail to kind of take back for what they've been contributing, because retail and enterprise is helping drive these companies' valuations, and like this is a chance for them to get extract some of that value back.
Yeah.
Also through UBI. So like getting ownership is a critical part in the future.
Yeah.
And if they don't have any ownership, they're not going to be able to share in the success of the future. And I think most people could agree, and maybe people can comment, like XAI, Anthropic, OpenAI, all portcos of USVC, they are very likely going to play a foundational role in the future economy. So this is a chance to participate.
Getting any sort of ownership in these top companies is going to be valuable.
Yeah.
I think what you both are talking about, I can see that both is true, because Naval is a philosopher. He wants to do good for the world, but he
Right.
also has to figure out the business needs. He also has to run a business.
Yeah.
So I can see a mix of both, like democratization, obviously. Like, why are kids just putting their money in gambling, and why not in the best startups when they can own a piece of it?
Yeah.
But also, exit liquidity makes sense. Like, yes, we right now, like Elon is talking about, money is about to lose value. We don't know where this is all going. So, some sort of balance. I'm seeing some sort of balance over here.
Yeah, and like the exit liquidity thing, like it has to happen because you can't pay your rent with equity, right? Equity doesn't put food on the table.
Exactly.
So these early, these employees at these companies, that's why you see secondary markets for the last few years have emerged to be on par with IPO and M&A for like exits, the secondary market liquidity. So people are selling their stock. This is a vehicle through which they're able to get that liquidity. It allows those folks to kind of cash in on the growth of these businesses. So I don't know. I think it's win-win because the employees get to cash out, retail gets to participate.
That actually makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like if you're all these biggest companies, they are giving massive stock, massive ESOPs to all their employees. And if they want to go and purchase a big house, but the salaries are like 200, 300K,
Exactly.
they have to somehow find liquidity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, but basically my point was mainly on like at the time, right? Like what the timing is. So if you overbuy as retail, right? If you bought the top of the SPACs, you lost money, right? If you chased Chamath, right, as a retail investor and you bought everything that he invested in, a lot of it lost money. And the
But
same
every
with,
SPAC was like an individual company, and
Correct.
so. But this is more, I think, balanced. Like if you look
Yeah,
at
it's
the
basically an index
portfolio,
fund.
Yeah.
So
I think this also opens up the market for more people to come up with vehicles like this, because maybe their idea is good,
Yeah.
but the exact execution might be wrong. Like you might not agree that if I'm investing in one USVC, I want 20% of XAI, whereas I want more Anthropic, I want more OpenAI. So the execution of the vehicle might be wrong, but this opens up more people to.
And to Raj's point, like we have to be careful we let because that was kind of my opening question, right? It's like how do we give access to retail without it becoming like something irresponsible or dangerous? Like what we've seen in other jurisdictions when it came to things like tokenized assets is like sometimes for retail you'd have to do like these kind of knowledge tests to see that they're aware of like the risk they're assuming and things like that. So perhaps there's like on top of this like a layer that's needed to make sure they know like what they're getting into. Like the gambling thing is kind of interesting because gambling, at least you get to see the kind of like immediate like did the Steelers win or did they lose, or did the Bulls win or did they lose. This is kind of like a longer term kind of bet, and I don't know if like young guys are gonna. They might want to just say they're part owner of XAI.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the only thing.
It's
they
so
want,
interesting when you said the knowledge test thing, because it reminds me, yesterday I was having a conversation with someone, and I'm not going to name names, but basically she said that her dad is not that smart, doesn't know how to speak English. He lives in a place where they don't speak English. He just randomly came across Bitcoin. He bought some Bitcoin, and today he's traveling the world. He's living his life. He's
Yeah.
traveling more than
it's
her.
amazing.
So it's like, it's like, it's just like gambling.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think everything is kind of gambling at some point.
Especially in crypto.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. It's like whatever conviction you have based
Yeah.
on all the limited information you have today, you make a decision, and that's
Yeah.
it.
I mean, basically.
Unfortunately, for
VC
every
is
one of
too.
those stories, there's about 1 million of the other version of that story
Yeah.
where they put a
Totally.
lot of money in, and
Totally.
All right.
Next
Ready for the
tweet.
next story?
Wow. Do we have a conclusion for this topic?
I think we're like
You-
split, but
on a
like
high
I
level-
think we
yeah.
agree that it's like we have to be careful with retail access,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, basically.
It's interesting because what you both are talking about, democratization and exit liquidity, this is exactly the balance that Naval and Rikant will be thinking about.
Yeah,
I want to
it-
figure out both. What am I giving to retail? What am I giving to the businesses?
That's right. I mean, they're smart. They figured that out.
Right,
But
right.
in the current climate that we're in,
Right.
I think it's important.
Naval, we
Retail.
love you. Please sponsor NSTV.
Yes. Let's go. Your gambling is my investment. Russell paradox. Exactly. Your gambling is my investment. Do you know about,
Exactly.
anyone knows about Russell paradox?
I've not heard of the Russell paradox. But
Okay.
I think I get the.
Thank you, 10K
sentiment of
Rotator,
things.
for
Yeah.
all the comments over
That's
here.
pretty
Keep
good comment,
going.
yeah.
Keep going.
10K Rotator from Stablecore. I know. Yeah.
That's right. That's
yeah.
right. From Stable Corp. Exactly. All right.
Shout out.
Look at this one. Having a family is insane because it's like your own personal Thiel Fellowship. I love that. I love that.
Interesting.
Makes sense.
Who sent this?
Atlas. You know Atlas?
No.
Just a guy in SF, and he makes his own podcast. Yeah,
Mm.
that's it. Host of Modspod. All right.
But didn't Thiel pull people out of college? Don't most like
Yes.
families put people into college? They pay for their college?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like.
So it's kinda
what's your
works.
kid? You are funding your kid.
No,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So it's more like, it's more meta. Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
quick question.
Yes, sir.
AI related. I assume we don't have kids. Do you have kids?
No.
You have kids?
No.
I don't have kids either. But would you send your kids to college nowadays?
Hell no.
It's very
Yeah.
interesting. I would send my kid over here, network school.
Oh,
It's a combination. So,
that was a kiss-ass answer, by the way.
oh yes, yes.
We need more sponsorship money.
He
right?
wants to. He's like, son, use my referral code. I'm gonna snipe and be like, Use
sign
Uncle
the
Randall's-
long-term contract. I need
use
to-
Uncle Randall's referral code. No, I'm kidding.
By the way,
No, that's a good point.
By
Good
the
point.
way, it's in the description, guys. Go. The referral is in the description. But anyways, I think it's very interesting. Like, I met this I respected this one guy who I worked with. He was a product manager. I love product managers because they're like, okay,
Yeah.
tech, design, and then product philosophy. They think about all of them, right? And he has a couple of kids. I was like, you're really smart. I would love to know how you're thinking of growing up your kids. And he's like, what did he say? He said that the only thing I can choose is his environment.
Mm,
So I'm gonna just choose his environment.
sure.
And today, I believe you guys also think the same thing, which is like college, the lectures didn't help you, but being in an environment where you're surrounded by this density of people, that really helped you,
Yeah.
right? And that's all that matters, because I go,
Sure.
like, it's like after exiting Waterloo, I went to Waterloo, amazing university, best known
One
for
of the
its
best
internship
universities,
program,
yeah.
and we have like alumni network, which is crazy. Like over here, I meet sometimes people.
Vitalics of
Vitalics from Waterloo,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So half of like Silicon Valley's all interns are Waterloo. So it's amazing. It's an amazing network. And the moment I went to Vancouver, I can feel how isolated I am. I don't know my sense of belonging. I'm running like like an adult who is trying to figure out constantly groceries and all this kind of stuff, and there's no way to actually connect with people and just spend time with them. So for that reason, environment is really important. And network school, I see some people over here who come over here to do their self MBA.
Yeah.
100%. This is basically like college for adults.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it feels
Exactly.
like.
And that's exactly how I
So-
also realized this, that in India there's also this kind of like trend that you do 18 to 22, you do your university, you come out single and maybe with one corporate job, and then you go for your corporate life for 2 to 3 years, you make money,
Yeah.
but again you're single and you are kind of burned out, and then you go for MBA
Right.
to find a girl.
Yeah.
So this is
It's
our
the same
time.
probably in the US.
But don't come to network school if
Yeah, don't
that's
go.
your only goal.
Yes. Finding a spouse here.
Yeah,
not-
it's. I'm sure it will change.
Speaking of unlikely bets. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so Brett Taylor, who was on the board of OpenAI, and he is right now running this company called Sierra. He just launched this, and I thought it was pretty cool. As coding agents have become the standard for developing software, we have transformed our interview process to be AI native. We have documented our lessons here, and very curious how others in the industry are navigating.
Okay.
Would you interview, create an entire AI native process for interviewing candidates as kind of the top of the funnel?
I was talking to another friend about this because they're actually Canadian as well. So
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay. You guys are the 50%. So
I wouldn't mind.
yeah, exactly. So they're in Toronto, and so I was talking with them. I was like, okay, they have so many inbound from U of T, and so they're like, okay, they're a hardware company.
Yeah.
So it's a very specific niche, like battery testing equipment. And I think the numbers today in 2026 are like 1,000 plus on LinkedIn, and then hundreds on their main website, and then like here and there cold emails, like 10 to 20 cold emails, right? So I think things like this are happening because the job markets on the macro side, the job markets are crazy. It's insane. Layoffs every day. I mean, today there's like 8,000 layoffs at Meta.
Today?
Today.
Wow.
Or at least that's what the news
Was it
said.
Microsoft or Meta? I
And
can't remember.
Microsoft
yeah,
as well.
Microsoft. Yeah, it's
7%.
crazy. Yeah.
There's basically Microsoft saying, "Oh, here's X amount of money."
Yeah, early retirement.
Early retirement. Yeah. And then we're not gonna hire you obviously after that. But where do these people go, right?
Wow.
If you're a VP or a director, like you're not gonna get $1 million again, right?
Right.
It's unlikely given how fast AI is going, right? You may have to settle for 500 maybe or 250, whatever, right? There's a decay curve now for salaries, and so stuff like this is just a reaction, I think, from the companies where they're like, we got to move fast. We just raised 100 million, so we got to hire a lot of people. We have to grow, and so I see that this is going to make it efficient, but also the HR teams may get shrunk, right? Because all these tech companies have to now put free cash flow into CapEx or other types of OpEx that move the needle on the product at velocity, right? Or marketing and distribution. For startups, it's mainly those things, but for these big tech, it's like hyperscalers, it's like, if we can save $1 billion, we can put it into a data center, right? Or AI training model, whatever, right? So I think that's we're in this doom loop now, ironically, where if you don't lay off, someone else will, and then they're gonna take that savings and then put it into, AI. So
can we open this? Because I want to understand what exactly he's saying, because I wonder when he says the AI native interview, because the way that it's written, it's almost like now like AI is like transforming the way you make software. So does he mean like if you do, like is it AI, like an AI is doing the interview, or is it that you need to show you can use AI with your coding?
AI is doing the interview.
Oh.
Like end to end, right?
Not end to end maybe, but I'm guessing definitely the early
like
stages.
phase 1, phase
Let's see,
2, or
rounding out the rest of the process. What did we learn? We're hiring for strengths, not just absence or weakness. Let me see. Let's quickly see this. The AI native interviews simulate real work.
Startup in a day.
Plan, build, review.
Yeah, so they can use any AI. So I think it is about like actually like how do you use AI as a developer? That's what it sounds like.
Yes, yes.
The way that it's framed.
They are very much focused on job of an engineer, yeah.
Right, so it's not just like, because like those technical interviews where like you do like the coding and stuff like that, they give you a task and blah, blah, blah.
So
this sounds like you like are given the task, but you are expected to kind of use, or you can use AI as part of it.
So candidate defines what to build, focus as product thinking plus initiative, build using any tools, pivot, cut, scope, improvise, review, demo plus critique, evaluate product decision, technical judgment, how AI was used.
I think like every like hire right now, like this is like obviously for technical roles, but from marketers to like salespeople, like AI native, it has to be part of like the job description nowadays. Because to Raj's point, like, if you don't do it, your competitor will use these tools and be far more productive and efficient being able to do it. Like these workflows, like every single workflow has to be like every major corporation right now is reevaluating every single workflow and how to make it more AI native. So, yeah.
It's actually very cool what you asked, because it's like when you go into an interview, your interview could have a bad day, and then totally changes. And this is what's written: is this person, the old mechanism of evaluation was, is this person well-rounded? The new one is, where would this person spike and how do we support them? And then also, I like this one. Interviews should feel like creation, not interrogation. Because the interviewer is only interrogating from the frame that they have. That, okay, I am an expert in databases and I want to see if this guy is good at databases. But you forget that this guy could be really good at something else that you are not even evaluating for. You don't even know how this person will contribute to the team in a different way.
So that's an interesting point, right? That's like the net positive side is that you can scale interviews that are personalized to the person, right? Without the computer vision algorithm going on your resume and saying, oh, you don't have the keywords, you're not right. So if everyone were to interview, go through the process, let's say the 3-step or whatever process companies have,
right,
that may actually unearth some diamonds in the rough or gems.
Right.
Like whenever I've hired, like what I always realize is like, it's so weird. The people that have cold emailed me, and I've got I saw the resume, I was like, this doesn't work. But then they cold emailed me again. I ended up hiring.
Okay.
Which is weird.
That was just looking for initiative?
No, actually, it was maybe randomness or something where I overlooked the them on the traditional resume side, but when I gave them a project, so I do technical interviews when I was hiring.
Right.
I'm like, here's a project, open-ended question, just be as creative as possible, right? They blew me away.
Okay.
Versus the people that were like amazing on paper, right? They didn't wow me as much.
Yeah.
And you can kind of say, oh, it's confirmation bias or like some psychological.
It's a very
thing,
common story, right? You're
but
just looking at like ex Microsoft, ex Google, ex like Palantir, and you're like, oh, this person should come and they will come and just change my entire company. Yeah.
In the technical interview or in the project interview, right? When you had to think outside the box. So it's a really interesting phenomenon I see. Maybe it's that there's a net positive here where you can probably, unearth gems. But I mean,
I'm also thinking about this. So one thing I know you're reading, but I'll mention one thing. One interesting thing I also think about is that as I'm spending more time in network school, I just found myself that we have all the tools. Yeah. Even back home, I had all the tools. But the beauty is in co-creation, not just individual creation. Because what am I creating for? Right. I remember like when I created this NSTV.world website, I was so excited that this one guy is beside me sitting and he's like, is this the first app you have vibe coded? I'm like, no, obviously I have Cloud Code, I've vibe coded many apps. This is the first time I feel like I built something that matters. Yeah. Because I'm here, I came up with an idea with one friend, I put it out, some of the friends said you could do this thing with it, we made it better, and now people are sending feedback and now this thing is rolling. So it's like, that's it. Like co-creation matters. Like even today, there's this one girl who was like, oh, I'm an interior designer, I'm thinking about this one problem. And I'm like, I have some ideas and I would actually love to sit down with you and actually do this together because that's the fun. Yeah. It's true. That is the fun. Some people work better like that. Yeah. So. You were reading. Go.
No, I was just trying to figure out like what they meant by this. This AI. It does sound like it's still like in person. So they say they do an in-person native, like an AI native on-site interview. Okay. But again, it sounds like more open-ended, and they're expected. They give them like a task, kind of like what you were describing, and they're expected to kind of like use AI to iterate their ideas and then come up with like what the product is. So they're almost looking at the process of like rather than just like the final outcome and how they use AI to like iterate and stuff like that, which is it's interesting.
And I'm curious how they're doing the process. Are they just putting a camera on top, or are they recording?
Well, they said they step out of the room and all that, so I think they.
We have found this.
So Bill, the interviewer steps out, and the candidate brings the idea to life over 2 hours using the AI tooling and frameworks of their choice. They have the complete freedom to pivot or adjust scope as they go. And then they demo what they built. Blah blah blah.
Interesting. So it does say that the candidate drives ideation while interviews ask questions to strengthen it. So there is one person who is kind of asking you questions. You are not left alone, right?
It's almost like a little like individual like hackathon in a way.
Yes. That's pretty cool. It's also more engaging even if candidates are nervous at the start to set expectations. We share evaluation criteria. Okay. Really cool. By the way, we have a new comment. What jobs do you guys think won't change in the age of AI? Nurse.
I think,
Go.
TV show host. No kidding.
NSTV host.
Well, I mean, while he's thinking, I always think salespeople are going to be the most, needed, because like really top salespeople. Because if you think about, I mean, there's a reason people are these OpenAI and Anthropic are hiring forward deployed engineers, right? That's like one of the fastest growing job segments, I believe, right now. Basically, technical sales. Okay. Right? If the cost of code is basically zero, and building something costs like way less nowadays, right? Relationships will increase exponentially, I think. So if you have an executive who has like all the Fortune 500 Rolodex, contacts, they are highly valuable. I mean, even arguably a co-founder, at this point, because if they're bringing this much distribution in a market where it's going to be a commodity, because intelligence is now a commodity, I think that's kind of an interesting thing I've been thinking about. I don't know where it could go, right, and what the reality is, and if it's reflecting in the numbers, but I think salespeople, by nature, it's an art, right? Sales, especially B2B, it's like so hard, right? And so a lot of these venture-backed companies that are growing super fast, they have figured that out, or distribution hacking, and that's another art in and of itself, right? Even with the agentic side coming in and automating a lot of it, it's still like, how do you drive the system forward, right? You can figure out the zeitgeist. Right. I think it's still an art.
Who asked the question?
10K rotator.
Okay.
What jobs you guys think won't change?
Yeah. So I think partly it depends on what your view of like how the world will change with AI. So and what kind of timeline. So even on the like the sales thing, I agree. Like at the kind of large like enterprise level stuff that are high ticket and stuff like that, that will still need like salespeople because it is highly relationship oriented. But if you also believe in an alternative version of the world where it's like from the one person startup to the no person startup, where like it's agent to agent type stuff, there is no salesperson in that context, exactly. Right? So if you really believe in like the agentic economy, like even marketing will be completely different. Like what we think of marketing is completely different to agents. Agents don't care about puns and like cute logos and stuff like that, right? Their interpretation of the world is very different. Same with like relationships. Like their relationship system is partly reputation based, which is like a different form of reputation than we think about, right? Theirs is more like delivery on like certain outcomes, blah blah blah. So I mean, so if you believe in that version of the world, arguably like nothing, or I mean everything. Sorry, everything will change in the age of AI. Maybe spouse. That's the only thing that doesn't change in the age of AI. Maybe like being a spouse is easier with AI, but like, I mean, arguably this is like the
There's
most
AI versions of those now.
Because
apparently.
you focus on the highest leverage tasks only.
Yeah.
Everything else is taken care of.
I mean, to that
by
point,
biology, food. Look at it.
And I think the philosophical side of this is like basically it's something I've been thinking about. I was like, okay, well, if agents were to take over the economy, what is the point of human-led labor economy? Like, should we just have a different version of capitalism at that point?
Have you guys read Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche?
Yeah.
I have not read all the books, but
God is dead. You have to create your own values. You cannot outsource your meaning to God. You cannot outsource your meaning to state, government, and that's it. So which means you have to create your own values, which means you're an artist. So the only thing that matters is you being an artist. You're looking at yourself as an artist. An artist doesn't just mean that painting. It's everything. Using everything that's around you and trying to do something with it. You have a beautiful vision and you try to go towards it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think everything ultimately will have some form of like AI kind of influence, from influence to like transformation to complete like elimination because of AI. So I mean, maybe the world's oldest profession, which I don't think I can say on this channel.
Ooh, okay.
GPT it.
I think there
that
will
helps.
still be.
That helps.
But what's interesting? I think there'll be this like nostalgia for like human-made things, like in the same way we have like made in China, it's gonna be like made by human. We're gonna have like stickers with like made by human. Like we'll have like an imperfect pot or something. It's like, oh, this is cute. It's made by a human. And then like the perfect one is next to it, but it's like 1/100th the price that's made by robot.
Sounds like a Momex.
The problem is
yeah.
AI is starting to intentionally add the imperfections for it to look human.
I mean, yesterday it did, right?
Exactly, right?
Where's Waldo? Oh, it didn't even add a Waldo.
Exactly.
Like,
That was crazy. That was crazy. But also, like, you look at all these, what do we say? All these gradient, I forgot, that's a beautiful word for photography where it's in motion. What is it called? When somebody's in motion and then you click a photo.
I know what you're talking. It's like it looks blurred.
Blur, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's this motion blur.
Okay.
So you have motion blur photography with all the lightings and neons and gradients and texture and the film grain effect. I'm creating with Grok, and it's perfect.
It's perfect. Okay.
It's perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect.
Or imperfectly perfect. I don't know which one is right, but one of those, either perfectly imperfect or imperfectly perfect.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like, so then it matters. The story matters. The human story matters.
Yeah.
Show me, live stream yourself creating that bot.
Right.
See that? Yeah. That's,
cryptographically verified.
Put it on the blockchain.
Put it on the blockchain. That did you actually create this imperfect bot?
Or was it your agent,
imperfect bot. Yeah.
Okay, it made me think about this. So like I guess two things, like in sports, right? Like so Peter Thiel wants to launch this like league where they're gonna allow like performance enhancing drugs, like so you can like have like the fastest, like strongest, like blah 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 people.
Right.
And then like obviously once they get these robots, like they're gonna be better at like dunking and like hitting home runs than like humans will. So do you think like in the future like we're still gonna watch sports? Like is maybe that an untouchable like profession where we're still gonna like value that humans like they work hard to achieve this and like they don't need drugs, like, or will the performance enhancing drugs one be the, because it'll be more entertaining the more home runs
This is
you can
beautiful,
see.
man.
So like, do you think
Yeah.
what do you think will win in the end, like in like sports, for example?
You want to go first?
I mean, top of my mind is I think I was watching these videos of I think there's like these funny football or soccer videos.
Yeah,
where, like
yeah,
these
the
robots. I think they're Japanese robots.
Yeah, they're cute.
Yeah, exactly.
cute, okay.
It's like this is like a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
And they were just like this, right? Like penguins,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
trying to kick the ball. And then fast forward today, you have Unitree. I think it was the Chinese New Year, where the videos came out of like them dancing.
Performance, yeah.
Amazing dance, right?
Yeah.
Like this is insane. Like you're talking about like a dance crew, like
Yeah.
type dance.
And I think there was also somersaulting and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So
yeah.
that's where we're at.
Yeah.
So to your point, the next version of that, literally maybe next month, someone's going to be playing soccer or football, right? Or another sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically the same training, how it goes, right? You just need the data.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
probably sooner than we think.
But would you rather watch, like, let's say robot sports where it's like insane, like they're jumping all over the place,
Yeah.
or would you rather watch performance enhanced
Wow.
This
humans
is a good-
or
yeah.
humans, just pure humans?
I
Like
have
for-
one of my really favorite movies is this movie of Roboboxing. I don't know if you
What?
guys know.
I know there's like a league,
There's this-
right, for robots.
There's
But that's
a
probably
league,
separate.
but there's also a really good movie. I forgot the name, but it's
Okay.
Roboboxing. It's like these people buying these robots, like massive robots, training them, going into underworld kind of like space arena, and having
Interesting.
these crazy battles, like where you are
Yeah.
literally killing them, and people love it, right?
that wasn't a movie. That was one of your shroom trips.
That's true. No, you gotta watch. I'll share that movie, but maybe. And when you say that, it reminds me of the fact that this entire conversation around exactly all the sports equipments. So in running, On the running shoes or
Yeah.
running brand On, they came out with these latest 3D printed high fat cushion shoes, which one of the best athletes he used for running, and he was able to go for 2-hour marathon. And people were like, how is this even possible? This shouldn't be allowed. You have like changed the game of sports because everybody doesn't have access to the same shoes. So this is like
Right.
unfair. So people are talking about like how people are infusing so much technology into the equipments that the game dynamics, the way the game was designed is changing. The way the sports was designed is changing.
So are you suggesting universal basic shoes?
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
That's the idea.
On sponsor NSTV.
I love On. Sponsor NSTV. And then on the other hand, the sport's curling, right?
Yeah. Sport.
The sport, exactly.
Very
exactly.
Canadian sport.
I was like, I don't know. Do you know curling?
I know curling. But
You know
I don't
curling,
watch it.
okay. So curling, I don't think anybody watches it, but
Okay.
for those who watch, even I don't watch, but I just saw one of the persons creating a documentary on that sport, and she was
Oh,
like,
okay.
in curling you have these brooms, right, that are used to, I don't know what you call them.
Yeah, no, it is a
It's
broom.
a
It's
right?
just, like,
Okay.
just
I was like, am I
silly.
using a wrong term?
So silly.
I don't want to offend anybody, the Canadians. Okay, but anyways, you have the broom, right? So the broom's job is to kind of create the stones of where the ball. What do we call that?
I think they're called rocks, I think. Or are
Okay,
they
rock-
stones or
rocks.
stone?
Stone. It's a
Stone,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. The stone has a good story as well. But anyways, the broom creates the curves for the stone to turn, right? And recently they created this new broom which was so good that you were very easily with not too many turns or swipes,
Yeah.
you were able to easily swirl it. So the curling team and the curling people were like, bro, you made the game so easy.
Right.
Let's never use this technology again. Let's never use this broom again.
Right.
So they had this handshake moment where they were like, we all agree that even though one of these companies have created this super advanced tech, high-tech broom,
Right.
we're never going to use it. Because that messes up the game dynamics. It makes the game so easy that
Right.
there's no point of playing the game.
It could sweep the nation.
Exactly.
Very much.
But anyways, that was a good. I'm really curious. Like,
But like, yeah, which sport would you want to watch though? If you had the option between the three,
The performance enhanced one is fun.
it sounds interesting,
It's-
right?
Yeah,
'Cause,
I'd be down for that. Like,
Yeah.
Like imagine like football, like American
Yeah,
football,
I mean-
or even regular soccer football, right? Like that would be insane. Like someone going up against Cristiano Ronaldo, he's already like maxed out, right?
yeah.
Or Lionel Messi, with performance enhanced like drugs. Like that would be kind of insane. Like
Like
Usain Bolt, like speed.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Like, stuff like that. Like,
but like Thiel said, like in this like league, like they would still like test them to make sure they're not like doing anything like super unsafe or anything. It's just that they would be allowed to use things that are usually banned by like the IOC or like the leagues and all that. So like, but yeah, you'd have like baseball games with like 100 home runs, or like it would just be like
be
crazy.
insane, right?
Like soccer players that could like run as fast as Usain
10
Bolt.
goals
like,
against like some teams. Like
I don't know. It sounds kind of
it's
fun.
really cool because in the existing system they're not allowing it. There's like people are still using it, but it's like not it. But what if you let them go all out?
Because they're constantly trying to change like the parameters of the sport to make things faster. Like I think they reduced like the distance between the mound and like the home plate to make it like like those pitches like faster. They've done things with like basketball, like with the 3-point line and all that, right? So like they constantly are trying to adjust the parameters, but what if they adjusted the humans instead? Right? Like it could be like it's a whole other like dimension.
Imagine UFC.
Yeah,
UFC.
That would be murder. That would be a murder box.
There was someone.
You guys are on UFC right now.
Where's the ring, right? So I was gonna say, it just reminded me of I forget which fighter it was. It was like recent. I saw like
UFC fight.
No, it was I don't know if it was UFC or MMA.
Okay.
But like this guy, he was like saying he took BPC 157 after his fight, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I recovered like in 2 weeks," and he was like bragging about it, and he's like, "This is the protocol we're gonna always be on," like his coach was saying. I forget the fighter, but like this probably is happening in some way, right? Already as we speak. And I know Russia has been, doping for decades, right? Like, so
why are you pointing at him?
No,
I'm Ukrainian, so
Russia.
He's trying to say to me like, those
nothing against Russia.
It's like, why is Russia?
Yeah, those guys.
Closer to Canadian, right? Closer.
Yeah. Close. Yeah. We are technically just over the Arctic Circle. Yeah. But yeah, so you would watch performance enhancing. You'd watch performance enhancing.
Yeah, 100%.
Entertaining.
Yeah, that would be
entertaining. That's the definition of entertainment.
Yeah.
All right. No more questions from 10K Rotator. What do we have next?
10K Rotator. What would you watch?
Yes. What would you watch?
Same with.
If he is live right now.
Yeah.
If you are not here, let us know. Let us know. In person. All right. Look at
Probably cost less than no ads. Is that even real? Or is it AI
This is
generated?
real.
Okay.
This is real.
I don't even know if it's
That's true, right? Like if you just look at a video,
True,
yeah.
it's weird. But imagine you're walking down the street on Soho and you see something like that. You're
That
like,
definitely
okay,
sounds like a Soho
everybody's
thing.
standing now. They're like, what just happened over here? Where did it fall from? There's no building at the top.
Right.
Who threw this from the balcony?
They should have actually just dropped
Yeah.
it.
That's,
Made it an event,
They should just remove glass from the BMW, so
Yeah,
that it's not splatters. Well, this was pretty cool. Do you guys know this artist?
No.
Nigel Sylvester? Okay.
It definitely is art, for sure.
Yes. All right. OnlyFans. We are back to the main topic. Let's go.
Yes.
Only burn, only learn, only whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, it should be a tagline, right?
Only fun, yeah.
Only fun, yeah.
Only fun, yeah.
And then OnlyFans. So
OnlyFans and Church were
Wow.
tied on Google Trends as of 2025, whereas now Church is almost 2x OnlyFans. Interesting cultural shift.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what do you guys think? I mean, I saw this tweet today and I was like, this is kind of interesting as a graph, right? Like, so yeah, what are your like just thoughts in general? It can go many ways.
It could go many ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a patron of one of those two things. I won't say which one. I have.
Please be a man.
Here.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Please not only.
No. I'm a patron of the church, but I'm also I'm a employee of OnlyFans.
Of OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Or investor.
Yeah. That would be a big return, man. They make
Yeah.
like $30 million per employee. The revenue
it's
per employee.
insane.
Yeah. Anyways, I think this is a good sign.
It's a good
it
sign.
means I think I say hallelujah that we are healing, but I think another way to potentially also look at it is like I think like religion often kind of gets more popular when people are feeling like more like scared, anxious, like they need kind of explanation. They look to like religion for explanation for things that they can't understand or explain. So I don't know if this is maybe like less about like OnlyFans either like waning, or if this is more just like this kind of anxious, broader environment, and like people are just looking to religion to like help get more meaning out of like life or understanding what's happening. So maybe it says more about church than it does about OnlyFans.
Very
like, I don't know.
So your kind of like analysis is more on the meaning side. I'm thinking more from a connection. OnlyFans to church tells you URL to IRL connection. It's like it's like when you're looking for connection, but you are doom scrolling all the time, and then you are like you're exhausted. You feel like you're getting something artificially, but then you still feel like you are not getting the real thing. So then you go actually get the real thing.
Right. I guess it makes sense, and I think Gen Z. It's not on this tweet, but there was a graph I saw where Gen Z was one of the fastest growing new cohorts coming into the Christian churches. I see it in India too. Like in India, there was this interesting phenomena of like, you have raves, right? But there's like this idea of bhajans, like in India, right? You know this. So basically, it's the same thing.
Very interesting. Yeah.
It's like, but it's like a sermon, but like a bunch of people in one room, drumming and all that stuff, and chanting like mantras, right? And so that's actually coming back in mass. So I'm talking about like tens of thousands, like filling out a stadium type amount of people going in. And Modi actually posted this on his social media.
No, this is really cool that
you
mentioned that.
Interesting phenomena, right? To see and map it to what you said in this graph. And I think that's a net positive. I think we've kind of over-indexed in that like degeneracy per se. And now we're kind of, maybe people are like, okay, well, what, this is not fulfilling me spiritually. So what is spirituality, right? I know, like for me, I also restarted. I grew up Hindu, but restarted trying to learn what I actually learned when I was little. You kind of forget, right? And you move into other things in life.
I love how OnlyFans triggered the conversation of spirituality among 3 boys.
Right?
That's beautiful. But
we'll share our real opinions after the camera's off. Okay. And share links.
Nothing in the description.
No.
That's on the link.
This is good. This is good. Yeah. And I imagine like what you were describing, like those are like really positive, right? Like they're like you get community and like yeah.
I mean, you're Christian.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, how have you seen like Christianity change over time, like through all these phases?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like, I think there was like a surge that you saw after like, let's say like 9/11, when like again like the world was very kind of coming apart and the world order was kind of falling apart. Right. We're seeing it now, I think, partly because of like all the anxiety with like the wars going on, like the unemployment rates and things like that. Right. And whether it's Christianity or any religion, I think we're going to see more and more like people look to like these higher sources of meaning. Right. Just because because this is like a religion is like a phenomenon you see in like every culture essentially, like even like island cultures and things like that, because like when humans are unable to explain things, they like look to like nature, and like we've kind of developed our different interpretations of gods or things like that, or infinite intelligences, and it's just something that we look to find meaning and answers, and kind of the byproduct, which is great, like you were talking about, is like community and like being more connected with like fellow people. So
and also I think this meaning thing that you're talking about, it's like we are in general going through a meaning and identity crisis.
Correct.
Everybody's trying to figure out what is my identity now. Things are changing.
Right. I mean, with this AI stuff, right? I mean, it's happening in real time, right? Yeah. So I think a lot of folks are questioning. It's like, okay, I'm a software engineer. This thing can just do this thing like what I used to do. I got training for, right, over many years, like instantly, overnight, 24/7, right? Who am I, right? I mean, like some of this stuff, like I went through 4 years in grad school, and the literature review, which is basically a research paper, massive research paper, 100 pages long, that can be done in like less than an hour and 10 minutes now, for like less than $1. It's insane. So I think it's a good thing. The net positive out of that, I feel, is like we may start to reorder the idea of value and what value means in society. And I've been trying to figure out what that looks like, but one of the historical analogs could be like, when pre-industrial revolution, right? where we had societies were organized in a decentralized villages or quasi villages, like smaller cities, let's say, right? Not the urban metropolis, right, that we live in nowadays. And people were much happier, content, and because it's good. You don't need to know like how Singapore is if you're in Malaysia, right? It's actually good because like you're content, right? And so the thing is, at that time, the let's just call it the social stratification and the socioeconomic classes didn't really revolve around like money. Like merchants were like lower in let's say class than the nobles and the priests, probably in the European society as well, right? And I think in Indian society it was like that too before the British came in, right? In the Indus Valley, it was like literally nobles and like Brahmins are a thing because they were the priest class, and then the merchants and everyone were like kind of below or whatever, right? Because money wasn't like the biggest thing in the world. So maybe we go back to something like that if like everything's automated, right? Like
at least we have USVC.
Yeah, exactly.
One USVC.
Exactly.
Universal basic. What did he say? Universal basic ownership.
Yeah. And universal basic shoe.
Shoe.
Everybody got.
I like Nikes though.
I like On. Nike is basic now.
That's the next hot topic.
That's true.
Adidas not even in here.
No new comments. I think this is a good one. We'll wrap up for today.
Okay.
This was amazing. Raj versus Randall live on NSTV.
I don't think it's a versus. I think I will give if I win, I will give all my money to buy better Wi-Fi in NS Cafe.
Let's go. Fiber. What would you do with your 100 MYR?
Oh, let me see. Yeah, make an app for NS for the
church.
Church, yeah. Let's call it like a VC fund for religion.
How can we have base space but not church-based space?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, we need to have a cathedral over here. Some beautiful.
No, it should be called Grace Space.
Grace Space.
Grace, because
Grace.
It's all about
Grace Space.
Grace Space. Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's
go. Put like a little cross here.
Yeah, exactly.
Put like the what is it? Quran. Put like the Vedic text.
That's it.
Just put everything.
But yeah, this was NSTV. Thank you so much for joining. We'll do one last time.